Hello and welcome to the recorded presentation of Cora XDR plug and finished culture. In this presentation, we're going to cover those key tips for propagating and producing Cora XDR Vinca. The Cora brand has been around for several decades. It began with the Goldsmith breeding. In 2007, there was a breakthrough in the breeding where the series was bred to be resistant against the S strain of aerial Phytophthora or Phytophthora nicotiana. Continued breeding occurred through that decade, and in 2019, the Cora XDR series was introduced. And that series was resistant to 20 strains of aerial Phytophthora and also resistant to 10 strains of the most virulent strains of the disease. XDR, of course, means extra disease resistance or extreme disease resistance, but formerly that acronym also means best-in-class genetics performance under disease pressure, rigorous testing in field and laboratory settings, and also independent verification by third parties demonstrating the performance of the series against the aerial Phytophthora pathogen. Syngenta Flowers collaborates with Clemson University and other universities in order to monitor the performance of the series through field trials and lab testing. The Cora XDR series has several core colors, but it also contains several bicolors, novelty colors, and with 11 colors and a mix, the series performs very well for growers in our industry. The breeding improvements have been larger flower size, greater branching of the canopy, strong vigor in production and in the field, and of course, the resistance to several strains of aerial Phytophthora. Syngenta Flowers also conducts several technical demonstrations to show its resistance to the pathogen. And in 2018, a demonstration was conducted with several of the Cora colors against an additional F1 Vinca that has claimed resistance to the pathogen in our industry. When these seedlings were germinated and grown, they were then introduced to a slurry inoculum of the pathogen. Disease severity was monitored and measured, and the seedlings were then transplanted into larger packs and evaluated for their performance over 2 weeks. And as you can see, Cora XDR plants withstood that pathogen in the final production phases. Strong stands against the competition that had succumbed to the disease quite quickly. So this is one measurement of how we monitor and present to our grower partners and industry how this series performs well in both field and laboratory settings. From a quantitative standpoint, disease severity is always measured. And so on the x-axis, you can see here a scale of 0 to 5, and the varieties on the left. Competitor colors matching the Cora XDR colors primarily, and you can see the disease severity for the competitor series, that F1 series that claims resistance, is showing disease severity between 3.5 and 5 out of 5. whereas the Cora XDR series performing very well in all colors, showing very limited disease severity. So not only in these demonstrations, but also field testing the Cora XDR series in natural environments where we know the native aerial Phytophthora disease is present. And these trials are very specialized and studied primarily in the southern United States. So from the mid-Atlantic latitude down into Texas and Florida and the Southeast. And here in this particular field trial, you see the Cora XDR white, where 6 plants were planted in a block and are performing quite well. The resistant F1 hybrid that has claims to resistance to the pathogen has 2 out of 6 plants surviving. And then on the far right, another F1 hybrid that doesn't have resistance to the pathogen is showing a complete 100% loss and death to the disease. So this is just showing you the power, the resilience of the series to aerial Phytophthora. And this is why this series is so very important to our industry. Strong landscape performance in the Southeast and continued rigorous testing and monitoring to ensure that the series performs well for all growers and landscapers in our great industry. Now, along with that performance comes propagation and production key pointers. And for the remainder of the presentation, we're going to review those key processes in order to produce the highest quality plugs and finished plants. So starting in propagation in the germination stages of 1 and 2, where this would be from sowing until full cotyledon expansion, we recommend temperatures of 76 to 78 degrees Fahrenheit in that phase. A germination chamber could certainly be used in order to provide those optimal conditions. In some cases, certain southern growers, deep south growers, use germination chambers to avoid being too high of a temperature, such as 86 degrees Fahrenheit and above. Light is not required for germination. Therefore, we recommend a light covering of vermiculite to provide uniformity of the germination stands. At this particular propagation stage, stage 5 moisture is encouraged. This improves the uniformity of the stand and prevents random pockets of poor germination performance in the plug tray. Cora XDR are primarily sown in 288 cell trays with 1 seed per cell. To give you more detail and background in how we globally monitor performance and germination, we conduct soil media germination tests in Guatemala. And after 14 days, we measure germination. In those particular environments, temperatures range from 77 to 86 degrees Fahrenheit. And we're also monitoring for the radical development. We're also looking at the tone of the shoots, any concerns with chlorosis or poor seedling vigor, or any kind of seedling concern. These notes are made in the global database and can be shared with anyone that has questions about the performance of any one particular seed batch. So taking this information, for grower germination, our recommendation is to focus on a 75 degree Fahrenheit temperature. Temperatures lower, such as 73 degrees Fahrenheit, are very typical in greenhouses, although we often get comments, reports that germination could be lower, and this is why we continue to encourage a warmer temperature of 75 degrees. We often see where germination is very difficult, very poor, and this is because Vinca are being germinated at the same temperatures as several other types of bedding plants, to include things like dianthus or petunia. Vinca require warmer temperatures, and our Cora XDR recommendation, again, is to be closest to 75 degrees Fahrenheit as possible. To avoid any kind of thermodormancy issue, we discourage any temperatures above 86 degrees Fahrenheit. Moving into the later stages of plug production, from cotyledon expansion to the hardening off and shipping phase, our average daily temperature is still maintained between 74 and 76 degrees Fahrenheit. So having that 75 degree Fahrenheit temperature is so critical from all phases of Vinca propagation. While Vinca are day neutral, they still require high quality light. So in propagation at the later stages of 3 and 4, values of 2,000 to 3,000 foot candles or 14 to 16 moles per day is encouraged. For the media pH, to discourage any kind of root rot pathogens such as Thalaviops, and to manage tone and micronutrient absorption, our recommendation is 5.5 to 5.9. Because most plugs are being tested with the saturated media extract, the target EC is 0.9 to 1.3 millisiemens per centimeter. By fertilizing at 75 to 125 parts per million nitrogen, this value can be achieved. Some additional information regarding those final stages of plug production. We discourage moisture stages below 3. So wet dry cycles between 3 and 4 encourage healthy, white, dense root systems and good uniform shoot growth. We discourage any kind of pinching. Pinching would only be factored in if the seedlings were extremely long, elongated, or overgrown, or very mature. A plant growth regulator recommendation of B9 at 1,500 to 2,500 parts per million is recommended. We discourage bonsai as it can cause a phytotoxic situation with small black spots on the foliage with yellow chlorotic conditions. So again, B9 is our recommended PGR for propagation. Certain growers may use A-Rest, and that particular chemistry should be managed properly to avoid any kind of sprenching or media contact. Cycocel could also be used, but our recommendations would be at lower concentrations, anywhere between 750 to 1,000 parts per million, applying this at specific times of the plug crop, primarily in those later stages of 3 and 4. With proper germination temperatures, proper moisture management, Vinca finish within 5 weeks in a 288 cell tray. So again, the final key point in propagation is focusing on that 75 degree Fahrenheit range is encouraged. This will improve germination. This will provide a consistent root system across the plug tray, and it will deliver a very strong seedling for finished production. Maintaining a media pH below 5.8, 5.9 is encouraged to reduce the incidence of Thalaviops root rot. And warm temperatures, again, are going to deliver a very successful Vinca crop. Production-wise, an average temperature of 70 degrees Fahrenheit is recommended. Vinca are a warm season crop. Most Vinca crops finish beyond Mother's Day for the majority of the United States, and therefore warm temperatures are required for production. Delays in finish, root rot concerns can always be a challenge when producing Vinca at cool temperatures. So again, high light, 6,000 to 8,000 foot candles, daylight quality above 18 moles per day is encouraged. And again, this is a day neutral crop. So in the winter time, if this is being produced for the lower southeast, day length does not impact flowering time, but high quality light is encouraged. Some finishing tips regarding growing media and PGRs. Again, maintaining a lower pH of 5.5 to 5.9 improves shoot tone, avoids the incidence of Phalaeopsis root rot, especially if the pathogen is present and the disease triangle is accomplished. So lowering the media pH 5.5 to 5.9, whether it's using acidic fertilizer, acidifying the irrigation water, that will only improve the upper growth. If the growing media pH is too high, iron deficiency symptoms can occur, which is more of a uniform greenish yellow tone in the upper growth. Overwatering, so keeping the moisture stages above 4 for a consistent period of time, will also deliver that chlorotic upper growth. So maintaining a moisture level between 2 and 4 is encouraged, and allowing those wet dry cycles to occur. Pinching, again, not required, not needed. Cora XDR provides great branching. So with fertilizing at concentrations of nitrogen at 125 to 175 parts per million, will deliver an appropriate pH and EC for production. Vinca is a moderate feeder, and therefore targeting EC values, say for a pour through test of 2.3 to 3.2 millisiemens per centimeter, is encouraged. From a plant growth regulator standpoint, again, avoiding bonsai at all costs, using B9 sprays at 2,500 to 5,000 are encouraged, or Ensimidol or Arest can be used at concentrations of 2 to 4 parts per million. Some final production principles here. While this series is resistant to aerial Phytophthora, of some of the very virulent strains of aerial Phytophthora, Phalaeopsis, Rhizopus, Rhizoctonia, Pythium, and the Tospo viruses could all impact the health of the crop. So managing Western flower thrips to avoid impatiens necrotic spot virus or tomato spot wilt virus is encouraged, using systemic insecticides. Also doing a preventative broad spectrum fungicide for root and shoot protection is encouraged. Keeping a media pH below 5.9 is heavily recommended. And again, monitoring for root health and shoot health is so critical to the success of the crop. From a plants per pot perspective, Cora XDR are primarily grown in larger containers. So quart containers, 6-inch, gallon, hanging baskets. For the most part, in a quart and lower, 1 plant per pot is the recommendation. Crop production can range from 5 to 9 weeks depending on temperature, depending on environmental conditions. Larger containers, more plugs can be used. Hanging baskets, of course, would be upwards to 3 to 4 plugs per container for a 10-inch, but also ensuring that you're delivering an average daily temperature of 70 degrees and above in order to finish the crop properly. Healthy shoot tone, large flowers, great root system, all encouraged with warmer temperatures. Should you have any questions regarding technical information, how to grow the crop more successfully, challenges in propagation, fungicide, insecticide recommendations, growth regulators, our technical team is here to help you. Several members of the Syngenta Flowers technical team have expertise in the seed crops, and we encourage you to contact those individuals for support. We thank you so much for your time and attendance to this presentation, and we wish you all the success with Cora XDR.